So today we've got the illustrious, the magnanimous Danny Hickman. I met Dan through Brian when I was trying to get some help starting my business. Dan works at the Small Business Development Center through, I don't know, and I'll let him correct me when we get to him. So I met him through JCC. That's where, his office is located, at least as far as when he's in Olean. He's, at least for me, been an incredible person to have in this journey. He's been somebody who has been not only helpful as far as learning some of the ins and outs, getting my head around all of the, just quite frankly, ludicrous shit that goes into starting your own business, but he's also been just a good person. And when I'm struggling and when I'm having a day and I've got a meeting and I'm like, I don't have anything, he's always willing to just say, well, let's just sit and talk. And I think for me, that's the thing that really gave me confidence in knowing that, okay, you know what, I can pursue what I'm trying to do because I've got somebody like this in my corner. So, in the short time that I've known Dan, he's made an absolutely phenomenal, tremendous impact on me. So with that, Dan, how are you?
Well, as of right now with that introduction, I'm pretty overwhelmed. I'm a little verklempt. Give me a minute. Talk amongst yourselves. Jumbo shrimp, neither jumbo nor shrimp.
Brian, how did you meet Dan?
Yeah, so I met Dan in a very similar way where I run a business. And though I'm a technician, I can do my trade well. The business running, that's tricky. And there are so many hurdles that go up and down. Having someone in your side like Dan really, really helps. And though I happen to have a lot of the basic parts taken care of when I first met Dan, he definitely helped me gain the confidence to know that I was doing the things I was doing correctly. And just from what I've heard in the community, I think everyone who's ever met him thinks the exact same way. As a part of the Lane Business Accelerator, when we went to do the initial interview, the room was full of specifically Gardner Chiropractic. They were like, hey, we work with this awesome guy named Dan. I'm like, I work with this awesome guy named Dan. And then some other people are like, I've heard of Dan. And then we started in this accelerator where we're looking to try and get together to be a part of this program. We kind of changed the entire conversation to, how awesome is Dan? I know, right? And then have you seen his videos yet? They're super cool. And it did a complete tangent. And I want to kind of use that as a pivot point because just from what we can see around you, there's so many figures. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that because you are so passionate about that, about the topic of figures. And I'm not going to say anymore. I'm just going to let you take over.
Well, again, thank you so much. What I do for a living, the fact that I get paid to help people start businesses and, and rescue the economy, so to speak, that's what's fulfilling for me. I spent 10 years with the Red Cross. I taught people how to save lives. I've been with the Small Business Development Center now for 7 years, and I'm teaching people how to save the economy and create jobs. I'm to hear the fact that there's a great deal of discussion about me out in the Olean area, and I've had other clients out here in Bemis and Jamestown and whatnot that have echoed the same thoughts. And I just try to help people the way I would want them to help me if I were starting a business. But more importantly, I just want to relate to people. I'm a man of faith, and I'm a big believer that you do to others what you want done to you, and you treat others the way you want to be treated. So, as Steve said, there have been a couple of times where he's come in, we've talked 5 minutes on business, and we've talked 25 minutes on just helping him unpack if he's having a day. And, I love my job. I love the people. I got to make sure that my boss sees this because, that's going to be pay raise.
Oh yeah.
But no, thank you guys so much. I really am grateful for that. Has everybody taken the Dramamine this morning? I don't want any motion sickness because we're going to go on a little tour of what I affectionately refer to as the Geek Tower. And
we're here.
The reason I call it that is it's second floor, top corner. This all used to be set up in my basement when it was the Dan Cave, because and then when my youngest son finally moved out, I took over his room, and my wife was kind enough to actually paint the walls in a Batman themed color. And as of course you can see, I'm not saying that I'm Batman. I'm just saying no one has ever seen us in the same room at the same time. So, and this is, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. This is just a fraction. I actually have probably 80% of my original Star Wars collection from the 70s and 80s.
Wow.
All packed in totes in my storage room downstairs. I keep talking about needing to curate the museum and maybe rotate some stuff down. And I did that recently. I actually moved a bunch of my DC Comics figures, my Batman, Superman stuff, all of that down into the basement to free up some room on the shelves behind me so that I could rearrange. But I'll take you on a little tour here. So it's time to fly, gents.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We'll start out up on the wall with
Yeah.
the packaging. And I don't, as you can see, I'm not a big believer in keeping your figures in package. I say, if they're encased in plastic, how would you feel if you were encased in plastic? If you can't breathe, they can't breathe. Play with your toys.
I agree.
100%.
Darn straight.
I love Legos. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, as I said. So I do have 3 different Millennium Falcons. I want a 4th. I have to justify to my wife why I need to spend $170 on another Millennium Falcon Lego set.
Think of the feng shui having 4 of them on the corners there.
It's like
right. Well, that's kind of the goal. But actually, the one I really want is the of course I can't think of the actual title of it, but it's like an $800 Lego set, but it's got over 7,000 pieces to it. So one day, anyway, so there's that. And then, we kind of get down in here. Don't mind and please forgive the mess. I've got my work table set up. I was doing some figure shots the other day, and then I just got stuff all over the place, but you can see there's more stuff down below.
More Millennium Falcons. I see them hiding. The babies.
I've got my 1980s DC Comics Superpowers collection hiding down below here. Actually got the bulk of those from a woman that was she had reached out to me to ask if I would be able to kind of give them an idea of what their son's toy collection was worth. Tragically, their son had passed away just a few years ago, and they had all of his old toys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so in lieu of cash payment for basically grading and appraising their collection, I bought a whole bunch of DC Superpower figures for like $40 from them, and then they threw in the Batcopter and the Lexor 7 because I ended up pricing out some of her Beanie Babies. But we move up and we get to our middle section with our 66 Batmobile and some of the Mego style figures. Sorry, I'm getting blurry there. Camera doesn't want to focus. Fine, be that way. McFarlane Toys has done, come on, why are we not focusing here?
There.
McFarlane Toys has done a few different play sets. They've got a whole 66 line. So I've got the Batcave there. And actually, you kind of can see it over on the far side is Wayne Manor, the study with the hidden elevator or the hidden access to the bat poles. And then, of course, like I said, Lego Nut. So there's 66 Batcave there. And way back on the far side here, we've got, I did keep some of my DC stuff upstairs. I've got my Superman Doomsday 2-pack and a couple of the Flash and the Reverse Flash figures. I've got my NECA Ninja Turtles down below, and then just my RoboCop and a Phantom down on the bottom shelf there. Sadly, I am tethered by my wire, so we don't get to move a whole lot.
You say that this is like, I'm embarrassed to admit, but I don't know. Depending on who you're talking to, they might say, no, this is what proves that you're a real one.
So those shelves are all Marvel Legends. and I've got them arranged by the MCU figures and then the comic figures. We kind of move over to the side. Well, you see above them, I've got, I don't know if you can make it out there, but there's a Batman Bane. There's a pencil drawing, and in a frame up there, it's kind of in a double frame with a color print.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So years ago, I used to be partners in a small business called the Card Connection. It was sports cards, comic books, memorabilia, the whole 9 yards. And we would do art contests for our comic customers. We found out that Graham Nolan, who at the time was drawing Batman for Detective Comics and had co-created the Bane character, is from East Aurora, New York. So we reached out to him, negotiated a price for him to be our celebrity judge. He came down to the store, drew the sketch for me, and then a few years, I don't know, probably, let's see, I've been there 7, so probably 8, 9 years ago, I came across him on Facebook, and we were talking. He remembered who I was, which was really cool. I went up to Buffalo to Nickel City Comic Con at the Marriott there, the Millersport Marriott, and he had the color prints. So I went to buy one from him. He actually just gave me one, which was neat. And when I started working at the SBDC, I had a very big empty blank wall. So my wife surprised me. She took the pencil sketch and the color print, got them matted and framed like that. And that actually hung in my office at work for a while as a conversation piece to talk about when I owned my own business. But then when I moved up here, it had to come home. So, so that's hiding up there. There's my messy workstation. You can see I've got my tackle boxes that I keep all my figure accessories in. I actually just had these figures arrive today, which was pretty cool.
Where'd you get those from?
There will be a G.I. Joe Torpedo review coming next week, but we've got the Ben Reilly Spider-Man, Tarantula, and then Chasm, which was Ben Reilly after being basically covered in kind of like the symbiote goo, I guess. I didn't follow the storyline, so I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Over on this side, we've got some old Transformers. We've got a lot of our import stuff, my Mafex collectibles. I've got some SH figure art, Superman, Batman stuff over there. The black filing cabinets are full of comic books. You stone a shop, gotta buy books. And then as we move over here, my wife hooked me up with the really cool Jaws stuff. We found those at an FYE one time. And so she snagged Quint Brody Hooper and the Shark.
Another one.
We've got some more. Let's see here. Actually, the white shelf mostly just has boxes. All of my import figure stuff, I keep the boxes for because it's easier to store their accessories and parts. And then I've just got some miscellaneous up here. Funny story about the Indiana Jones there in the back corner. In the McKinley Mall up in Buffalo. Well, you know what? Let me get to that in a second. Here's my final. I bought the NECA figure diorama. You can actually pose up to like 30 figures on there. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, it's just a few. Messy workstation. There's my coffee. There's you guys. Everybody say hi to yourselves. And there's my light box for photography. I actually just switched out my black background for the white one so that I could do the Riri Williams. There's my yard. I am actually really a nerd.
Yeah, and that's just a fraction, correct?
And yeah, I have several totes downstairs that need to be brought up. I actually think one of these days I may just completely renovate the basement. Or my mother, we bought this house specifically to move my mother in with us, and she has the second floor minus this room. But on the other side of that wall, there is kind of a utility room. And at some point, I know my mother will no longer be with us. And there might be a door opened in that wall where this expands outward. You didn't hear that, but no. So the Indiana Jones, when my wife and I started dating, we'd go up to Buffalo and we'd kick around and do stuff. We'd go to the McKinley Mall, and they had a store in there. It was called the, it was like the Hollywood store, and they had all these different collectibles. I mean, everything from figures to plates to albums, the whole 9 yards. And they had that Indiana Jones sitting up on their shelf, and it was $189. And I'd look at it, I'd drool a little, but I didn't. At the time, I wasn't really getting back into collecting as much, and what I was mostly, just the $20 Marvel Legends, which at the time were $15. Thank you, inflation. So I'd look at him and I'd pass him up. My wife and I dated for 2 years. We got married. In that time, we'd go to Buffalo. I'd look at him and I'd see him, I'd pass him up. Got married. 2 years passed, 3 years passed. So finally, 5 years we've been together. 2 years prior to being married, 3 years married. We're up in McKinley Mall. The store has moved to a new location, and Indiana Jones is now 150. And I'm looking at it, and my wife says to me, "You've been looking at that thing for 5 years." He finally dropped it like $40. Just buy it already.
True.
So Indy came home. I think what amazed me was that it was there for 5 years.
He was waiting for you.
Well, if it's meant to be, it'll be there, right?
Yeah.
So what percentage of your collection do you think you have in your room with you right now?
It's a tough question.
I would say probably 70%. I'd say there's probably about 30% more downstairs.
Okay.
So, you've been doing this for, I can't even tell, most of your life you've been into this stuff. So what was it that, is there a franchise or a character, like a storyline or something that just grabbed you and it was I fell in love with all of this stuff? What was it that got this started for you? Because, not only do you do the stuff with the business development, but, you've alluded to it a little bit, but I'll just say it. You've got your own website, you do photography, you do reviews. What got this ball started for you?
So really, my mom and I moved to New York when I was just before I turned 5 and my parents got divorced. So I was raised as, I was an only child. And I'm never too big to admit that I was spoiled as all get out. But I fell in love with Star Wars as a kid. And birthdays, Christmas, you name it. My grandparents really, they doted on me. My grandfather bought me my first comic book, it was a Doc Ock story in Amazing Spider-Man. I couldn't tell you the issue number, and I wish that I could actually find it because I would love to have another copy of it. And so, of course, that was my introduction to superheroes. And, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, you had Mego, and that was really about it. And then they made the little Mego pocket heroes, so I had a crap ton of those. And then then the 80s toys started to hit. I had Star Wars, like I said, was out. Masters of the Universe started coming out. Transformers, G.I. Joe moved into the 3 3/4 inch realm. And so I was buying that stuff. My mom was buying that stuff because, I was basically just a little gold brick at the time. But I think a lot of it was because being an only child, I had plenty of friends that when I was a kid and everything. But I had just a very, very vivid imagination. I enjoyed the realm, of these characters that they did things that nobody else could do, and they did them for the right reasons. And, my grandfather's a very, very big influence on me. And one of the things that he tried to instill in me is, a sense of justice and of doing things right. So I hit my teen years, and, you're a teenager, you stop doing this stuff. And then I got married to my first wife, and I didn't really buy a whole lot. But then when I opened the store with my buddy, I was able to kind of get back into it. So I'm adding to the comic book collection. And obviously, if you're going to own a store that deals in collectibles and memorabilia, you kind of should be able to talk about it from at least some reasonably intelligent perspective. And so I got back into it then, but I didn't collect as much. And then I would say probably early 2000s when the X-Men movies hit and Spider-Man, the Raimi Spider-Man movies hit, that really rekindled everything. And I bought some of the early Toy Biz X-Men figures. I bought some of the early Toy Biz Spider-Man stuff. But again, it still wasn't enough for me to say, you know what, I need to have a room full of stuff. Everything was all pretty much, I had a room, but it wasn't like I was going out necessarily and adding to it. And then 2008, Iron Man hit. And Toy Biz was they had introduced the Marvel Legends line. And it was really astonishing to me because now, here when I was a kid, you had these figures that the posability, the articulation, the design was really lacking. And you get a 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures. The elbows don't bend, the knees don't bend. Your head's turned. That's it. But they opened up a whole new. Oh God, I'm going to make a bad pun here. They opened up a whole new galaxy for me. Now we've got this amazing, engineering in these figures, and of course, naturally, we'll grab Torpedo. I don't understand why Hasbro can't use the same engineering design for the Marvel Legends that they do for the Joes. But you got these figures that you've got all these multiple points of articulation. I mean, you remember I'd said earlier about the ball joint at the waist? So we've got that. We've got a torso joint that can bend. Dude can kick his legs up this far. How many people can do that? Much less a piece of plastic with engineering. And so I'm seeing these things that are out that, I'm thinking, man, God, I wish they'd had this stuff out when I was a kid. And then I remembered, mentally, I still am a kid, but I'm a kid with money. So now I can do this stuff, right? And I started buying out of the sheer enjoyment of it. Well, when my wife Jen and I, we, like I said, we were dating, and I was starting to get back into collecting. And then we got married. I had told her, because I wanted to be respectful of our family, I wanted to be respectful of our finances, that I would really do my level best to stick to superhero figures and kind of stay with that genre, which, as you can see, the bulk of my collection is. Because the most important thing has always been to never be irresponsible with my spending. And one of the things that I said to her was, if you see me becoming irresponsible with it, I expect you to cut me off until I get my head, removed from where it's at. And I've never abused that privilege. I mean, we have 4 kids. They never went without. The bills were always paid. We had roof over our heads. So the important part in collecting is you're making sure that you're not being irresponsible with your money, but you're rewarding yourself for doing the right things. So now I've got this incredible wife who supports my hobby, and I've stayed true to my word. I do some one-off stuff here and there. I did kind of build that as a stipulation because, as much as I like Star Wars, I would be broke if I collected Star Wars along with everything else.
Yeah.
Although I couldn't pass this up, and you guys are I hope that you guys get as much of a chuckle out of this as I did when I finally broke down and ordered one. Also kind of at my wife's behest. Hasbro introduced the Selfie series last year.
Oh, yeah.
And so the Dandalorian has come to life.
Wow. Yeah, it would have been a crime to pass that one up.
I mean, and look at that handsome dude,
That's how you know you really got somebody who's in your corner when they're like, you know what, you need to order this.
Yeah.
Well, the best part about it was I told her when I got it, if God forbid something happens to me and I predecease her, she'll never be rid of me. She's just not allowed to forget me at a restaurant or someplace like that, because then there would be like this whole Toy Story thing of my figure trying to find its way home. But no. So I've tried to really kind of stick with my word for that. Staying with what I wanted to stay with, and it was the superheroes. And then, I don't know, maybe earlier this year, I'm guessing it had to have been. I really started to take more notice of the G.I. Joe Classified line. And I told her, I said, look, I just want to stick with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, the 2 greatest G.I. Joe characters ever, in my opinion. And then I made the mistake of seeing them release the Spirit Iron Knife figure. And so I got that. And then my wife said to me, look, honey, you have never, ever broken your word to me about being responsible. If you want to add the G.I. Joe toy line, go for it. I can tell by the looks on your faces, y'all are jealous. So,
Absolutely.
So I haven't added a whole lot, but last night we were I ran into GameStop just on a lark, and I found Torpedo. And so naturally I had to snag him and bring him home. And I don't know, you could probably barely see the Joes over in the corner. It's kind of funny. I actually have Marvel Legends ninjas on the same shelf as my Joes because I don't really care for the red ninjas that Hasbro's made for the Joe line. So they're over there backing up Storm Shadow, and it's kind of, you got to mix genres. But that's really kind of what got me back into things. And then when I decided, I started watching all these reviewers on YouTube, and there's some I'm going to name, and there's some that I won't because I don't really follow them anymore because I feel that, how do I say this and sound diplomatic about it? My job as and I'm sorry I'm going to use this term. I hate the term, but I've been labeled as such. My job as a toy influencer, I think, is to give the most unbiased opinion that I can on a figure and to be as objective as possible. Because if you're going to go out and you're going to drop $25, $30, $50, $100, $200 on a figure, you want to know that you're not getting a piece of junk. And you want to know that what you're getting is going to be worth it. So I see some of these bigger name guys who, they get their free samples from Hasbro and from Mattel and from NECA and from all these other companies and McFarlane and all that. And, that's great. More power to them. I aspire to that. I've actually had it happen from a couple of smaller companies, and I'm super, super happy. But I believe that they have compromised their own ethics because the same guys who would call out a company for substandard performance in engineering, paint applications, whatever, are now raving about the greatness of the figures. Well, if you're getting a free figure from Hasbro, and to my understanding, I can't verify this, but to my understanding, when Hasbro sends samples, they actually usually want the samples back. Because you hear the guys in the videos say they have to package them and send them back. So if you want to keep getting them, do you compromise and say good things even when the figure's garbage? And I kind of feel that some of these bigger name guys have done that, and it's a shame because what really introduced me and what hooked me was the fact that they would tell it like it was. And I try to preface my reviews by saying, if there's a figure I really like, I'm going to say it right at the start. Look, guys, I really like this. I'm glad I got it. I'm excited about it. I'm going to do my best to be objective about it and point out what flaws I can. But I want you to know that my review is going to be a little bit biased. And I think that that's really the inherent nature of what we're doing. If you're going to be giving your opinion on something, everything can't be unicorns and rainbows. You've got to have some rain in there. I was very, very pleased and surprised. Steve had mentioned my website, shameless plug, www.danstoybox.com. I was very pleased in February, just about 2 weeks before my first anniversary. I got an email from feedspot.com that my blog had been picked for their top 60 action figure blogs and reviews for 2023. And I'm currently hovering in the 30 to 35 range, which was fine because when I first made the list, I came in at 34. I moved up to 33. I dropped to 35. I moved up to 30. I think I'm back at 35. But I'm ahead of marvelousnews.com, and that's what's important because they have 45,000 followers on Facebook. So I have 300.
Wow!
But that was really neat. That was a very neat surprise. And as a result of that, I got an email from a PR company called Playwise Partners asking if I would like to get some samples of Toy Monster International's new Jurassic Park 30th anniversary line. And the woman ended it by saying, I think that we've worked together before. I worked for Jack's Toys for 20 years. Now I'm sitting there scratching my head and I'm thinking, no, I don't know you. So I looked at my wife and I said, all right, let me check and see the legitimacy of this. So, I Googled and I did my research and everything. And sure enough, they legitimate company. So I sent her an email back and I very carefully crafted my wording because I didn't want to blow my chances. But I also, if it wasn't meant for me and she was thinking of somebody else, I also wanted to be honest about it. And I replied back and I said, well, I can honestly say I don't think we've ever worked together. I'm not sure if this was meant for me, but if it was, I certainly would be interested in discussing getting samples from you. I just want to make sure that you did reach out to the right person, because I also don't want to ruin the opportunity for somebody else. 5 minutes later, I got an email back. We'd love to work with you. So integrity, guys. I had a 45-minute phone call with the woman the next day. She was in Los Angeles, and we squared away details. And if you go into Dan's Toy Box just a couple of months back, you will see some really, really cute little Toy Monster International Jurassic Park dino. What the heck are they called? God, this is terrible. Don't get old, guys. Your memory goes right out the window. But anyway, they're little pop-in locks, and they're little battlers. Basically, you can put them together. They come packed in a little egg with a little bag of slime, and they've got little attribute cards. My granddaughters have pretty much all of them now. They went with them when they moved, except for some of the newer ones that they sent me a little bit more recently. Those have been pilfered by my 78-year-old mother, and they are sitting out in her living room. So when you are an influencer and a collector, it affects the people around you, and pretty soon they're taking your stuff.
So we're going to jump into it, talking a little bit more about your website and everything that you have going on there.
Okay. I actually started, excuse me, I had made some video reviews over on YouTube, and I discovered that I really didn't like filming videos. I don't know why. Obviously I like to talk, and so and if you guys get bored, grab some coffee. If I'm putting you to sleep, it's okay. Just don't drool on the control board. Sparks, never good. But I don't know. I've always enjoyed writing, and I love taking pictures. Now, there are a lot of toy photographers out there who are just light years above what I do. And if we have time later on and you guys want to hear about it, I actually write an article for a toy photography magazine as kind of a freelance writer, and we can get into that a little bit later. But so I was writing for another website, which shall not be named. I don't want to give them the publicity, and had kind of a falling out with ownership and the team there. And I decided that I was going to launch my own. So February of 2022, Dan's Toy Box was born. And as I've advised you guys, when you build a website, you always want to link it to Google right away, because you want to be found, correct? And of course, I've always been really, really good at not taking my own advice. So the first couple of months, Dan's Toy Box relied on social media. And February 13th, I launched. I hit my first 1,000 visitors by June 27th. Not exactly a stellar record for the launch of a niche website. Of course, it really picked up mid-April when I remembered to get my website found on Google search. And within 3 weeks, Google search had outstripped all of my social media for people finding me. But I think I've been really, really just blown away by the exponential growth of the website. Before you guys came back, I was sharing with Brian that I hit my 10,000th visitor on March 22nd this year. And between then and now, I've been consistently averaging 1,000 visitors plus a month. I hit 16,000 on July 16th. And as of this morning, which is the 29th, 13 days later, I'm at 16,960 site visitors. So
picking up speed.
It's been growing incredibly well. I write an article, I'll post it, I'll share it on my social media. I have a whopping 31 subscribers. So if you guys, if you want to get articles emailed to you and you never want to miss one, go ahead to the website, fill out the subscribe box, and let me know. Yes, again, shameless plugging. I have no problem with self-promotion.
Oh, don't worry. We'll have all the links that you could ever want at the end as well.
Outstanding. So that's really kind of what the genesis of it was. And I had said to myself that I had actually thought about if I get to 10,000, but it takes me too long to get there, then I probably wouldn't stick with it. And the fact that it took just a little over a year, I mean, from February 13th through December 31st, my year-end total was 7,019. Can't complain because, like I said, June 27th, and all of a sudden, August, September, October, November, bang, 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 bang. I'm getting more consistent visits. And to date this year, I've almost done 10,000. I'm only 40 away from 17,000. So I wish that I could explain how it's taken off. I'm not going to even try, and I'm grateful for it. But the funny part of it is that even with a year and 5 months worth of data, I can't predict what people like. I mean, I can post Spider-Man articles and they get picked up and read. But as I was sharing with Brian, I've got people that are coming in, they'll go into the action figure review page and they'll start scrolling down and they'll pick articles from last year. I mean, my two most read articles were published last, let's see, one of them was August. I think one of them was like April this year. And it was the August one was the Renew Your Vows 2-pack with Spider-Man and Spinneret. Since I published that, it's had over 1,000 views. And the Indiana Jones, the new figures that Hasbro's released with them, I think Indiana Jones is my number 2 most viewed review with just over 900 and some, I think. So the next 2 after that are Spider-Man figures, and then a Mezco Superman that I did a few months ago. So really, trying to predict what people are going to like and what people are going to want to see is kind of like blindly searching through a haystack to find a needle. And I've actually just decided, you know what, I'm just going to post what I get and what I like. And that's really, I mean, it's a hobby. And the best part about this for me, and people are going to look at me like I'm insane, I don't make any money off of this. The only money that I'm making, and I haven't been paid yet because I haven't hit that $100 threshold, is I linked Google AdSense to the website. So when you're on the website, please click on the little ads that do pop up and populate. That puts, like a fraction of a cent in my pocket, but I'm appreciative. And since I linked that, I think I'm at like $51. So once I hit that first $100 and I get that booming check from Google, baby.
Hey,
don't spend it all in one place.
Yeah.
We'll be adding more guys, right?
Well,
but I've thought about, adding paid subscriptions. I've thought about starting a Patreon, but I think if I do that, then I'm going to feel like it's a job, and it's a hobby. It's what keeps me sane with all the other stuff that I have going on in my world. Right? And, a couple of hours a night taking pictures and writing a review on a figure is as relaxing to me as honestly as going out and playing around of golf. Yeah. So that's really kind of where the genesis of the website came from. And, I try to go into the about page and rotate the photos in there on a weekly basis. If I get outside and I take some shots outdoors. My wife bought me a beautiful Canon 4000 camera for our anniversary a couple of years ago. So most of my review shots are taken with my trusty Samsung, but if I'm outdoors, I'll grab the camera rig and I'll go out and set my tripod up and I'll get some shots out there. In fact, I think if I have screen sharing capability and you guys are interested, I'll pull up some of my pictures.
Yeah, I can give you that.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. It's kind of like, it's something that you're just doing purely just out of the love for it. It's pretty crazy just how quickly it seems to spiral out of hand, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, geez, I didn't even, I wasn't even really looking for this. I figured I'd get it way down the line, but that's...
it just really, it's something that has taken on a life of its own.
You're all set to screen share.
Okay. So let me find a good picture to start with here. And I actually found a really cool watermarking app because, you need to protect your property. And I was on Instagram one day and I saw a whole bunch of my pictures posted on somebody else's Instagram, which, would have been okay, except that they didn't credit me. and they were claiming they were theirs, and I've seen it happen with other photographers. So, all right. So as I was working on the review for Spirit, I decided to get outside and throw a mat down in the yard and get some shots of him in the natural state that is
in the field,
my front yard. But got some shots of his accessories here. And I'm kind of jumping through. There we go. I wanted to actually get into some of the posed shots because the other ones were just kind of like my stock appearance pictures, front, side, back, whatnot. Can
you take us through the process of, you have this action figure now, and how do you start to rate it? How do you start to say this is good, this is bad?
Well, what I'll do, when I crack open a figure from the box or something, I rate on 4 criteria, and they're all listed in the reviews: the accessories, the appearance of the figure, the articulation, and the affordability. And what I'll kind of try to do here is I give it an arbitrary scale of 0 to 10. But I'll look at the stuff that comes with the figure. We'll jump back here to Spirit, to all of the accessories that came with him. Mm-hmm. So this guy comes with his M1911 pistol, his sniper rifle, 2 combat knives. He actually has a backpack which Freedom, his eagle, can perch on. Plus, it can also perch on one of his greaves on his wrist, and then you can interchange the wings on the eagle, which is kind of cool. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, all right, the G.I. Joe classified stuff actually comes with a lot of really cool paraphernalia with it. And if, in my opinion, the accessories enhance the playability factor of the figure, and there's a significant number with it, it's going to end up getting a higher rating. It could get an 8, 9. I think the only figure that I can actually think of that I gave a 10 to, and I might be misremembering, would be the Mezco 112 Superman that I reviewed, because the sheer amount of stuff that was packed with that figure was beyond belief. But so I'll base it on what it comes with, the detail of the accessories, and and if I think that they give the figure more added value. The appearance, I'll grade it on an overall look. What do the paint apps look like? Are they clean? Is there spray over? Is there spill over on it? Are there areas that they've missed? Is the figure a good representation of the character himself? And in this one, Spirit was always one of my favorite Joes when I was younger. And when I saw this one come out, there wasn't even a second thought of, I'm going to have to add him at some point, because what they did to get the look and to replicate and modernize even, from the 3 3/4 inch it's just spectacular, the amount of work that went into it. And the paint apps on this, you've got the detail on the patch on his shoulder here. You've got his sergeant stripes, and then even just the face and of course that's a great picture. His face is in shadow. I'm so good here. There we go. But even the tie for the braid, the eyebrows, his eyes themselves. I was
looking at the backpacks in one of those shots, and it's like those are, you can see all the straps and the weaving and all that. It's intricate.
And even if you look at this knife sheath, it looks like it's a buckskin sheath, and it's got the fringe around the edge of it. So I'll factor all that stuff into my appearance ratings. And then you get a figure. Again, I got to grab somebody that's right nearby. I'm gonna go with this Iron Man here that I showed you earlier. The only paint detail on it is that little bit of gold that's in the that are highlights on the armor, and the black inside the eyes, because the rest of it's molded plastic. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's disappointing when you know that you can apply.
It feels
Good.
lacking, right?
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed you.
It feels lacking. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, this is such a cool character. It's like just a little bit more effort and it would have been so much better. A little extra touch of paint can make all the difference in.
That's nice.
I'll tell you, even on some figures, even just the addition of a wash, whether it's a black wash or a brown wash or something to kind of highlight, where shadows would fall on a human being or on a figure. Even just something like that on some of these figures is going to improve the aesthetic of them exponentially. We've got, like I said, I just cracked this guy open, the tarantula figure open. I know you guys are looking at my screen, so, and he's just got a little bit of paint app on it. And I'll be getting into that. I'll actually be working on that review probably later today for a post this week. But the ones that if a figure is really eye-catching and you can tell that there is a solid amount of detail in it, that's going to also boost the appearance factor up quite a bit. One of the most frustrating ones, and I was so disappointed when Hasbro did the new black suit symbiote Spider-Man on the retro Spider-Man body. Some of the white on the chest and back logo on the legs was smeared. There was some very uneven spray. Some of the lines weren't crisp. But what got me was the head sculpt itself was like it was almost like there was a sticky substance on it. It wasn't sticky, but it was a very, very matte finish to it.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it was so frustrating because Spider-Man fans especially had been wanting a new black suit Spider-Man for Marvel Legends forever. One of the guys that inspired me, Just Jay Hernandez, he's out of Philadelphia. He is the black suit Spider-Man guy. In fact, Hasbro actually, when they released this figure, they sent him the prototype to make the announcement. I've got to, he and I have exchanged comments on YouTube a number of times. I follow him on Facebook and Instagram. We follow each other. Just a super nice guy. But even when they finally released the production, it was kind of a letdown because there were some limits to the articulation of it. And like I said, some of the slap on the appearance, it's like, how can you mess up basically an all black figure that needs white paint? How?
Very carefully, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm just kind of going through the spirit shots here. But let's see. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'd close you guys out. That wouldn't be good.
How much time does a shoot like this take? I mean, obviously there's a lot of time spent, just like planning out the different poses and getting him into position and getting it just right and figuring out where he's got to go. And
well, this one outside, I think I actually, because I used my actual camera for this, and it's cool because I've got the Canon app on my phone, so I can set my camera on my tripod and then I can control it with my phone. I can take all the shots that way. And so, the number of times that Spirit fell over and I had to go stand him back up was ridiculously sad. But in all, for the pictures that I took, I think I was outside for a good 90 minutes taking pictures just for this review. Okay. When I'm in here at my workstation, I'm in my light box. You'll see with the review that I posted today, the Ironheart review, I think I did maybe 11 or 12 pictures. And the sad thing of it is that when I know that the figure I'm reviewing isn't going to be getting a very good review, I will confess I don't take a lot of pictures of it just because I don't want to put the extra work into it. Mm-hmm. And that sounds terrible because I'm not going to polish a turd to make it look good if I don't like the figure. Mm-hmm. And so on the average for me, for a review itself, if I'm working indoors here at my Lightbox using my phone for pictures, start to finish, I'd say I invest probably a good 2.5 to 3 hours in a single figure review.
Okay.
I'll run probably 25 to 30 pictures, and then I'll go through those pictures and I'll try to pick out maybe 15 to 20 that I really like that are going to go in the post. And then I'll edit those. I'll use the editing apps on my phone just to kind of, tighten up the sharpness, maybe give a little bit more saturation. One of the big problems with a light box, especially, is that you can get washout. And I've had some pictures where the pose was just, it was choice, but the washout was terrible. So I go in, I reduce the brightness, I reduce the light source a little bit, I add a little bit of saturation to it. And, not enough to make it look unrealistic, but enough to actually make it look like you're holding the figure in your hand and you're getting a really good look at it in normal lighting. Because again, when people are looking at the pictures, I want them to feel that they're looking at the actual figure and not something that was spruced up just to sell. Because honestly, I don't care if you go out and buy the figure. If you like my review and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go get it, then fantastic. I had a great compliment on Facebook when I posted that Iron Man review. Guy looked at it and said, I was on the fence, but I read your review, and thanks to you, I'm going to save my money. That felt good,
Yeah, you helped him out.
Yeah, but then the actual, once I'm done, the photography and the editing can be anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half indoors. And then the actual article writing itself is about 2 hours from start to finish. Because, I'll sit there, I'll play around with the figure. We talked about the categories. I'll get into the engineering, the articulation, and I'll pose it around. And if I've got joints that are stuck, I'll run downstairs, go grab the hair dryer and hit it with some hot air, or I'll boil some water and give them a bath in hot water to loosen the joints up. And there are guys that use like silicone shock oil. I've never gone and bought any, and I don't really want to get into messing with it when I can use heat. But flash heat it, stick it back in the freezer for like 10 seconds, joints moving just like it should. You don't have to worry about breaking a pin or a connection. And I've done that. I'm very, very sad to admit the very first import figure I ever bought, I spent $94.99 on, was the Mafex cell shaded Spider-Man. Got it. I had it for all of 20 minutes and I snapped a wrist peg. I will not repeat the language I used that day, gentlemen, but there was a great deal of sadness in my heart, and I couldn't get any replacement pegs for it. So the right hand on that figure is permanently affixed thanks to the joys and wonders of super glue. You have to be careful with these things.
Let's say there's an individual watching who is interested in getting more into this hobby. Where would you point them to?
Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
Honestly, I would point them in the direction of their wallet first. Mm-hmm. Because the truth be told, you want to make sure you can afford to do it. This is not a cheap hobby to get into by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, even some of the more affordable figures, McFarlane Toys has the licensing for the DC figures lines. And I mean, they're putting 7-inch figures out. So, this guy might come in at about 6.25 inches. So you're getting a figure that's at least a head taller for $19.99. Mm-hmm. Marvel Legends typical retail is $24.99. The detail, the sculpting on the McFarlane stuff is absolutely incredible, but it's also not without its share of flaws. I don't collect a lot of the McFarlane because I'm really not a big fan, but he can do it and make it affordable. I actually posted an article just a few months ago on a beginner's guide to collecting. And really, I tell everybody when you're going to start out, check your wallet and buy what you can afford. But then when you decide that you're going to get into this, find out what your passion is. I mean, I look at these other reviewers and they do all these different lines. I mean, I can only imagine what their homes look like. And they've got, like the Jada Toys, Street Fighter stuff, Ninja Turtles, Star Wars, all of these things. And I couldn't even fathom. I think if I tried to go across all those lines, just have the multitude of different things to review, I would probably end up divorced living with you guys because my wife would kick me out. But no, if you're going to get started, find something that you're really passionate about, that you really enjoy. I mean, I am an unapologetic nerd for superheroes and sci-fi. And and I'm sure that if you really got a good close look at everything, I mean, you can see that the bulk of my main thrust of my collection is this guy here, because I mean, he is bar none. Even though I'm wearing a Batman t-shirt, Spider-Man is bar none my favorite superhero. Find what you're passionate about, see what you can afford, and then just budget it wisely and be selective. If you're going to get into reviewing and being an influencer and doing videos and stuff like that, be prepared to spend more, because you want to have that content that you're turning on. I mean, as you guys know, in any business, if you're going to use social media, your content cannot be stale. And man, I'll tell you, when you hit that, I see we hit the 10-minute mark, your content gets stale, you're going to lose your audience fast. So if you're doing that, it's got to be consistent. I put up a poll actually on my group on Facebook, on the Dan's Toy Box group, asking people's opinions on, should I stick with strictly new stuff? Should I go 6 months old, or should I go like a year or older? And 100% of the voting response was over a year. Do retro reviews. So I'll go downstairs, I'll grab stuff out of the totes downstairs, and I'll write reviews on figures that are a year, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years old, and they actually really get some decent page visits, which is cool. In fact, funny story, I did a review of the Star Wars Legacy Collection Millennium Falcon, which came out like, I don't know, 15 years ago, I guess. It's huge, and you can fit up to like 12 3 3/4 inch figures inside it, right? I had a visitor from the Ukraine, 7 visits in a row. The dude would average 2.5 hours on that page. Every time he signed in, he went right to the Millennium Falcon page. And I can track it in real time through my dashboard. Dude would be on for 2.5, 3 hours just looking at pictures of the Millennium Falcon. It's like I said, I can't predict who's going to like
maybe
what.
Maybe he had that toy as a kid or something, and it was just like, oh my God, maybe it was just going back and reminiscing.
That's what I'm thinking. Or it was a kid who desperately wanted one and was just rolling over mine, But yeah, find what you're passionate about. Make sure you can afford it. Make sure you have the room for it. Mm-hmm. And have fun with it. Collecting any hobby should never be a chore. And like I said, if I can make money off of Google AdSense that can help supplement my hobby, fantastic. But I don't want people to feel that they have to pay me for my reviews. I mean, I see guys that they have these Patreons, and you can pay them for content and this, that, and the other. Dude, we're performing a service. We're helping collectors. God knows it's expensive enough hobby as it is. Why should we take collectors' money from them when they can be spending it on cool stuff?
Yeah, I think that's an admirable way to look at it. So with our remaining time, I'm gonna open it up real fast. If anyone has some, I'm gonna ask
Noah if he has any questions, because he's just kind of been eye candy.
I've been soy faced this whole time.
I know Dan's really cool.
Listening to everything Dan's been saying. I was thinking the same thing time wise. Just before we actually run out, I think we might need to pivot to what Dan does. At SBDC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. Ryan, did you have a question?
Yeah. So, and you'll have to watch the time here, Dan. But what you do at the SBDC, if you could just talk a little bit about what you do and where local people can reach out and talk to you if they need that.
Sure. In a nutshell, we provide free and confidential business consultation services. So we work with startups. We work with existing businesses. I can help guide you in preparing a business plan, detailed financial projections. We can do cash flow analyses, social media marketing. As you know, I've actually started helping people build their own websites. Really, the list is actually very extensive, and people can visit our website. We actually have an SBDC website here in Jamestown. They can reach out to set up an appointment at 716-338-1024. And our admin will get their information and then pass them on to an advisor for follow-up. The neat thing though is, like I said, is everything we do is free. We're funded federally and through the state. So my favorite joke is the government pays me to help people. So I guess you could say I'm from the government and I'm here to help, and it's not a scary thing this time, But that's really, everything that we do is confidential. I have to get waivers from people if we talk about their business. Now, obviously, Brian, you and Steve had both mentioned that you'd worked with me, and since you brought it up, I'm safe, But there have been times where my wife and I've been out in public and I'll run into clients and I tell her, if I introduce this person as an acquaintance through work, she's like, they're a client. I get it. And 9 times out of 10, they'll come over. They're like, oh yeah, Dan's my advisor. I'm starting XYZ widgets. And, but that's really the biggest piece. And I mean, even with existing businesses, if you're looking to expand and you're trying to get some funding for it, we can help with that. Most all banks are going to want to see some type of a business plan. They're going to want to see projections. I pride myself on the projections that I draft for people, and I do it with their research. But I'm also very conservative. I know the area that we live in, and banks don't want to see outrageous promises on revenue. So under promise on revenue, over promise on expense, come in with a good conservative projection. I'm very proud of the fact that I've got a good reputation with many of the lenders in the community for what they feel are very honest and realistic numbers when we run them. But yeah, I guess that's really it in a nutshell. If you have a business question, you're looking to start one, or you're looking to expand your business, it's not going to cost you a penny to work with us, and you can work with us as long as you want, which is even better. I've been there 7 years. I've got a couple of clients that I'm going on 5 and 6 years with. In fact, my Olean, the days that I'm in Olean on Wednesdays, I have a standing appointment with a client midway between Jamestown and Olean every Wednesday at 2:30 that I'm out that way. And that's one of my 6-year guys. So you're stuck with me as long as you want to work with me. And apparently people like me enough that they do. So I guess we're okay.
I'll also point out that through the SBDC, you can get access to some very good quality videos on how you can run various aspects of your business, as well as getting access to data. So if you're looking to start a restaurant, you can get data about the traffic in the area. You can get you have better access to customer discovery data. And with the remaining time, I'm going to give you a little bit of whiplash and jump back to the nerdy side of the house. And if you could just let everyone know where they can find you, where they can find your posts, and where they can find any of your reviews.
So it's actually kind of neat. If you Google me, I come up, but you can visit me at www.danstoybox.com. I have links there to Facebook and Instagram and my very seldom used YouTube, which ironically I've had a couple of people start following me on YouTube, even though I haven't posted anything new there in forever and a day. But if you're on Facebook, just look for the Dan's Toy Box group. It is a private group, so you do have to get permission to get in. The only thing I ask is that if you want to come in, you want to join it, that's fantastic. Bring your hobby and your interest with you, but please don't try and sell anything on the page. If you've got stuff for sale, that's fine, but conduct any transactions in direct message with your potential buyer or seller, because the whole idea of the group page itself is we all need a break from the insanity that is our daily life. So if you're going to be in there and you want to come in and talk about the stuff that is fun, and that's figures, collecting, comic books, you name it. But yeah, that's my social media. I'm at Dan's T Box on Instagram and Dan's Toy Box on YouTube. As you can see, I'm taking this branding thing very seriously.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming down and for all that you do to help out the community and facilitating our entrepreneurial community. It is just fantastic. And again, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to share your hobby with us for so long. This is, I mean, it's not every day we get to discover a toy influencer.
There is hope.
Region.
There is hope for people like us.
There is.